welcome to my channel where we question everything. My name is de-industrialized, and today I'm going to talk about a conspiracy theory. Now, I have actually two theories, and today in this video I will only discuss the first one. Now, before I start, I just want to say that conspiracy theories, if ever, it's just a theory. It is connecting dots of information that suits your narrative, and it doesn't always include all the facts. Some of the facts usually, if it doesn't fit the narrative, people omit it. Now, if you ever have read a book or a video about aliens, Roswell incidents, and that type of aliens, then a lot of facts are always presented. References are provided. Now, these are the points that support the narrative. But you never hear about the other points that do not adhere to the general idea of the narrative. So the question then arises, are conspiracy theories believable? Well, that's the question you have to decide. Do I believe in conspiracy theories? Yes and no. Most of the conspiracy theories I don't support, but I do support the JFK assassination theory. I do support the theory about the moon landing, and I do believe the theory of 9/11. And the reason why I believe that is because the official story is so full of holes and have been so many times proven to be wrong that the official story is actually the conspiracy theory. And the theory is actually the truth, which is all fine. But do I believe in aliens visited the earth? Well, one can really debate it, but I don't want to go about that. What I want to talk today about is the conspiracy theory on why Germany is destroying itself, or why is Germany being destroyed. Now, to start off, I have to say I am not a historian, and I am not so clued about all the events that took place, and even the historical events are questionable. And so what I did is, throughout my years, I've read a lot of articles, read a lot of books, watched a number of videos, and I remembered certain events which form the basis of the informational data points that form the conspiracy theory. So it is a selection of certain information, and anybody can go and prove the opposite. But then always when I ask that, who is your real source of information, and can you believe it, and is it credible, and does it make sense for you, and so on. But I'm not going to really debate that issue. What I would just like to do, consider this conspiracy theory as a story. You can consider it as a fictional story. And that is the core principle. But I have promised a conspiracy theory in my other videos, and I felt it was now time to do so. So let's start with the current, with conspiracy theory number 1. If you listen to the news, and if you listen to the narratives of the pro-Western and the pro-Russian, you will always hear Germany, 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 Germany. You might hear a little bit about France, you might hear a little bit about Italy, Sometimes you might hear something about Spain or Britain and so forth. But the overwhelming narrative always includes Germany. And Germany is destroying itself. Germany is going against its own interest. Germany is banning Russian gas, or has been cut off by gas. Germany is the biggest user of gas. Germany is going to be de-industrialized. Germany is going to suffer. And Germany is shooting themselves not only in the foot, but they are cutting off their foot and their arms. That's about the general consensus. And it's very hard to decide on why they are doing it. Why would anybody really destroy your own country and go against your population and create all these problems? And this is where the theory comes into. Now, unfortunately, I have to go back more than 100 years ago. Now, as I stated in my introductions and other videos as well, I was born in Germany. I was about 6 years when my parents immigrated to South Africa. And most of my life I spent in South Africa. Am I a German? Yes, I am a German by the gene pool. Do I show some of the characteristics of the Germans? Yes, I do. But it has been blunted by the South African culture, and my culture in South Africa was not an English version, but an Afrikaans version. So my main language is actually Afrikaans and not English. Well, you should have noticed by now on the type of English that I'm using. And I sometimes battle to get the right words. But in any case, just looking at myself, I do sometimes feel militaristic. I do sometimes feel of being precision, as the Germans are. But I'm not totally like that. That has a little bit been blunted by South African culture. And you can say I am a culturalist, or some people will call it a nationalist. And I'm not a racist, so don't mix nationalist and racist in the same context. It's not the same. I believe in culture. And I make distinctions based on culture. And every culture have their own means of doing things. Now, my great-grandfather, okay, I was born in West Germany, but my great-great-grandfather came from East Germany. And to be honest, he came from Prussia. If you know where Prussia was, and how the Prussians' culture was. And just for instance, I asked my mother once, why are the Germans so precise? Why does everything has to be precision and neat and ordered and stuff like that? And the answer to me was that the German culture comes from a military background. And in that military era, it was an honor to be a soldier. And women considered soldiers as good husbands, and they were very disciplined. And actually, if a soldier dies, then they would get compensation. But the argument here is that one of the strongest properties, or no, property is the wrong word, defining characteristics of the German is that they are very precise, and they have been very, very militaristic through their history. And they have always been considered a threat to the world, especially the British and American empires, even the French empires. Now, I don't want to go back too much, because we can go back hundreds of years, but we all know that a lot of wars were fought before 1900. And the Prussians were not always involved, but they were mostly involved. And several wars were fought, and the Prussian military was considered as very good. And then, well, we go a little bit further and we get to the First World War. Now, I have said it in a previous video, I never understood why Germany is actually being blamed for the First World War. As far as I know, that the war started by the assassination of, I think, Prince Ferdinand, or something like, in Yugoslavia. Austria declared war, and then by mutual defense pact, Germany had to support Austria. And that's where the whole First World War started. One has to ask yourself, really, what was the reason why the First World War was ever started? Now, wars don't start just like that. It is usually, if you understand how politics really work, it's all about economics. Wars are fought in order to conquer other countries, to either enslave them or to strip their resources in order that the conqueror's country can have a higher living standard. And we can see it initially in the Spanish, when Spain was that strong, the Spanish Empire, if you want to call it, and later on the British Empire, and the whole matter about colonization. Oh, is that the right word? So those were the purposes in order to make the people rich in either Spain or in Britain. Now, at the beginning of the 20th century, yeah, that's the 20th century, Britain was basically still an empire, but it was declining. And Germany was getting economically strong, and Germany basically became a threat from an economic point of view. Because the Germans are hardworking, and they are industrialists, or industrialized, and they can make very good products. And they also have the innovation capability of technology and so forth. And if you can see it by many renowned scientists and so that came out of Germany or Austria. And well, Germany was really a relative threat to the world, to the other actors in the Western world. And I believe that is the main reason why the First World War was ever started. It wasn't some person that had political ambition or whatever you want to call it. But in any case, so First World War started, Germany was destroyed. In order to keep Germany down, the Treaty of Versailles, no? That's the one. I always get the name confused. But in any case, had such strict rules or terms that it was inevitable that the Second World War will follow. The repatriation or the war damages that Germany had to pay for the rest of the world. Just remember, Germany didn't start the war. It never started the First World War. It was enforced, but Germany was held to account as the main culprit. In any case, so the treaty basically forced Germany to pay a lot of reparations, war reparations, and that put a huge economic strain on the German economy. And even by being able to handle economic and industrialization, it kept the Germans down. But it destroyed the cultural aspects, number one. Also, huge parts of Germany were annexed by France and Britain. So Germany lost a lot of lands or part of the country, especially the rural area. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's not as simplified as I'm trying to make it, but how else do you, well, you have to get somewhere, and I'm not going to speak like for hours and hours and hours trying to explain the most intricate details that led to the Second World War. Because I don't even know all this stuff, and we don't even know whatever is written in the history books are even true in any case. But in any case, so in 1929 there was the huge depression. And it affected the whole world. Yes, nobody understands why the depression was. It's the same greed that was done on stock exchanges, similar to the 2008 financial crash. It's usually some different reason, but it's always greed and so on, and by the bankers and the financial institutions. But forget about that. Bottom line is 29 was the big depression. There was another depression which I mentioned, actually the small depression in 1921 in America, but nobody talks about that. So Britain battled to get out of depression. France, the whole West battled to get out of depression, except Germany. With the advent of the National Party and later on Hitler made a huge economic changes in the country, and he eliminated, at that side I think there was about 4,000 or 4 million people, or 4%, I can't remember now, unemployment in Germany. Well, within a year, he eradicated all unemployment. He effectively changed the German mark and so on, and made it financed the whole country, and Germany rapidly grew in a very powerful industrial country. Now, we can talk about the military build-up and so on. Just to mention, the Treaty of Versailles actually said that all parties have to reduce their armaments, and neither Britain nor France did that. But Germany did that, and when France and Britain didn't abide by the treaty, then Germany decided that they are becoming a threat, and that's why he built up his own military. Well, that's a general narrative. Other books will say it's different, but that's not the point here. The point here is that Germany became industrialized and very powerful economic, while Britain and Germany, France, were not. So again, by the innovation and the hard work of the Germans, they became a threat to the Western world, and the British Empire and the far, far away American industrial country. And just for interest's sake, okay, Second World War started. It was inevitable. There were a lot of reasons for that. Forget about all the normal reasons that you read in the school books and stuff like that. It's a lot more complicated. But I just want to mention that Germany never declared war. Britain declared war to Germany. It's never the other way around. But that's just a matter of fact. So, Second World War came, and Second World War ended, and Germany was destroyed. Britain and France suffered a lot, economically wise, and America prospered due to all the military weapons that were supplied to the Allied forces, and even the entry of America into the war as well. But it gave a huge boost for the industrial, and they could get out of the depression. Now, just after the Second World War, there was a certain plan proposed that was called the Morgenthau Plan by a Canadian. And that plan actually wanted to destroy Germany forever. The plan was to totally ensure that Germany is de-industrialized. All the factories are moved to the conquerors, to Western America, and Germany should just become a rural farm country. Now think about that. That is a threat. Germany was always a threat. But luckily, but then they realized that when they looked a little bit further, that if they implemented that plan, then a lot of Germans will actually die of starvation. And in the Western countries, they have to then send food and other stuff to Germany in order to prevent this famine crisis, and that would also not work. So they rejected the Morgenthau Plan. But it was a plan to destroy Germany industrial. That's it. Never German again becoming strong again. And then the West, all Americans have actually decided on a different approach. You will also notice that Britain has left Germany, France has left Germany, Russia has returned, removed out of Eastern Germany and later allowed reunification. But the only military force still in Germany is the Americans. And the Americans have the biggest airport and the most troops in Germany at the Ramstein facility. And as far as I know, there are also some atomic bombs, but that's maybe a debatable point. But America never left Germany. Now also, Germany doesn't have a constitution that was written by the Germans. They were represented with a document that governs Germany by America and the Allied forces. So Germany is not an independent country. Against all popular narratives. And that means Germany is still an occupied country. Very, very similar to Japan. Just remember, there are a huge contingent of American troops in Japan. And on the same way, it's a huge military base in South Korea, which is also still occupied by the Americans, to such an extent that the military of the South Koreans are not controlled by Korean generals, but by the American commanders there. But I'm deviating from the point. I just want to emphasize that Germany is still an occupied country. So how do you hold the Germans down economically? Now, I don't want to go into the details of the Holocaust. That's not important. What is really important is the Holocaust forced the Germans to pay huge sums of money to Israel. That means it put a huge financial strain on Germany. And that would have sort of tempered the economic growth. Yes, there is said that a lot of effort was put into by the Western financial method into Germany to grow Germany again and so on. But yes, you can talk about that. That was not like for free. Forget about free. Nothing is free. It was money making. Business is business. So they lent the Germans money. And the Germans took that money and built up an industry and then paid back the loans, and the guys made a huge profit. So don't think it was charity. But in any case, the approach that the Americans then took is they first left the military there. They basically created Germany as one of the frontline countries because East Germany was still there. And so against NATO, against the Warsaw Pact. And also, and they started on a clandestine, very, how would you say it? A very clandestine, not secret, but subtle, okay. Clandestine, subtle propaganda effort or operation on the Germans, and they started to control the media, and they started to control TV, and they basically penetrated all aspects of the German culture. And the reason why that was that Germany could be able to grow economically wise to a certain level, but the German people will feel so guilty for the crimes of the Second World War and the Holocaust that they will become weak and woke, and to extent unable to have any military aspirations, and that they would abhor any military actions. And that is actually evident by the German military and the German laws that prohibit Germany to enter any military operation outside its borders, which was later broke by when it entered Afghanistan or got involved in Libya. So that was actually a violation of their own laws and a violation of the original plan, the American plan to keep Germany down. Now, also there was a recent revealing, not recent, a couple of years back, of a German journalist that actually wrote a book. And he specifically stated how the journalists in Germany were instructed by the CIA on how to, what articles they should write and how they should change their words. And basically, the CIA wrote the propaganda that the journalists had to say in order to pacify the German nations and feel them guilty. And if you look at any German today, they totally abhor any form of violence. They abhor Hitler. In order to talk about Nazis and so on is actually prohibited by law. You can go to jail for that. So you can see the effort that was put into keep the German nation down. And that was very successful. Very, very successful. Now, I'm living in South Africa. I wasn't subjected to the same propaganda. So I don't feel the same as the Germans living now in Germany. And I can fully understand, and I actually disgusted with those people that are living there. And I'm talking about my family as well, because my whole family is there. And they are all woke and pacifist and jelly backbones. They have no backbones, except for naturally for a couple of people. So what happened else? So Germany now, a lot of Turkish people went to Germany. So they tried to sort of dilute German culture. If you look at now all the refugees, they are all going to Germany in order to destroy the German culture. So you can see all these type of things that do have an effect on keeping Germans down. Now, after the Second World War, Germany recovered fairly fast. And it became an economic threat again, to a certain extent. And then now the narrative goes like this, that the CIA was responsible for creating the European state as it is now. They first made it an economic union, and then it became the European Union, and then it became introduced the euro, and now it has become a political union as well. And the purpose of the initial plan was that if they bring in the union and they take all these PIGS countries, we're talking about the Mediterranean that usually suffer or don't have that strong economic condition, then Germany will have to pay for that. And again, it will put a burden on the German economy, and it will keep Germany down. That was apparently the plan. So, well, the union was established. Germany became the strongest economy. Well, it was still weak, but naturally, as Germany always done, it became the dominant economic powerhouse in Europe. And so all the tricks of the CIA didn't work. But now, because of all the Greece and Italy and so on, Germany is paying for all that. And Germany went to did that. And at the end, Germany gave the guarantee, so Germany is again on the hooks for all the financial shenanigans and risks that other countries have actually created. So, yes, that's how more or less went. The problem is, Merkel although she was a very pacifist type of person, and she was very slow in making decisions, she did try to protect Germany and against the influence of the Americans. But whether she has succeeded, I'm not totally sure. She made some very strong, stupid decisions, and became later on, especially later on, terms became very authoritarian. But she was a strong woman and a strong leader. Make no mistake about that. Unfortunately, now we have our weak leader. We have our Scholz, who is really nothing to be proud of. He's not a leader per se. He's a weak politician. Then you have the Green Party and the Green Agenda, which also put a huge, the whole green energy story put a huge financial strain on the German economy because it's expensive. But the Germans did it, and they survived, and they grew, and economically they were still a powerhouse. So basically it's very difficult to keep the Germans down. But now with the final action, the Americans or the West or the deep state or whoever you want to call them, it's not usually the government, it's usually somebody behind, have now elected to destroy Germany again. And they have used the Green Party, which are fanatics, which I've said can easily be manipulated. And most of the Germans are in any case having a high living standard. So when you have a high living standard, you're keeping yourself busy with trivial stuff, and especially all the woke stuff, and that breaks down your culture. And with the influx of the refugees and so on, that puts a huge strain on the economy and so forth. And if you also follow the 2008 crash, and who were the biggest losers, and you will find it was usually the German banks who were sold these fraudulent AAA rated investment vehicles by the America. But I understand there was some negotiation between Merkel and America to make that effect not that on the German banks not that severe. And well, with the pressure from the Green Party and the question of the wokeness and the green energy input, Germany is basically stuffed. Now we can go to the Ukrainian war, the Russian invasion, and all the sanctions. One has to ask yourself, did the Americans or the deep, I will call the Americans, but actually what I mean is the deep state, the guys that really control everything. Did they force Putin into that position? Yes. It was clear from the start. Did they decide to use Ukraine in order to destroy Germany? I don't believe so, but it presented an opportunity for them to do, and a nice opportunity for them to do. And the Americans will actually be to the American advantage, financially and economically. But the problem started already with the whole story about COVID, the lockdowns, the slowdown in economic activity, and the big money printing that went on. I mean, as far as I understand, America in 2 years added $7 trillion to their debt. And the Americans are now like 130 or something like that, 120% of their GDP. And that created a massive inflation, well, in America and in Europe. Unfortunately, probably not expected in America, because America always believed that the dollar was so important and that the rest of the world will finance their debt and their inflation and their living style. So maybe they made a miscalculation there. But the effect on Europe is fairly severe. And the sanctions so on just made it more possible I don't think it was planned per se, but they had various options, and maybe this was one of the options. And with Scholz in command of Germany, the German economy will again implode. Will it go totally bust? I'm not sure. I don't think so. But it will damage the German economy to a level that is again acceptable by everyone. So the threat of Germany as a rising power has again been stopped. And why I actually say this, and what I'm going to say actually has two interpretations. If you have noticed in the last 2 or 3 months, Scholz has actually came up with the idea that the European Union veto rights, or call it that all 30 or 27 or all 30 countries, part of the Union must approve a certain policy before it is accepted. He wants to destroy that. That means he wants only a majority of the Union members to vote for a thing, and if it's a majority, then that proposal is accepted and put through. And he was mostly referring to the financial decisions and the foreign policy. He also basically stated that Germany should be in control of the decision making. And with Ursula von der Leyen being a German old minister, well, one of the peons are already in place. And then Germany went ahead, and Scholz, not Germany, Scholz, went ahead and said, Europe must build their own military army, same as Germany. Merkel always prevented or went against France's proposal for a European army. But Scholz is not against that. He wants to build the biggest army in Germany, and he basically said Germany must control all the forces in Europe. Now you can interpret it as two ways. You can interpret that it was instructed by the Americans because Scholz is a puppet. Or you can argue that Scholz, as a German nationalist, hidden nationalist, is trying to make Germany great again and make Germany more powerful in the European Union. And that is basically his aspiration. No, I'm sorry. Scholz is not a Hitler. He's not a Churchill. He's not a de Gaulle. He's not a charismatic person. He's not an inspiring speaker. So I don't see how he can mobilize the German people to achieve his goals. So I would rather go for the first option, and that is that Americans told him to utter these items and make Germany strong, and then America will basically control Germany as they have done for the last 77 years. And it will be a continuous way of controlling Europe as a whole. Because we have seen all the more and more the Warsaw countries being more aggressive, being more vocal, and you have seen also the rise of the right-wing parties. Well, we had that in Italy now, but in France, it has been going on for a long time with Marine Le Pen. And it's only because the French political parties, instead, they voted for anti-Marie, not pro-Macron, anti-Marie. So they all came together to form a buffer or a wall at which Marine Le Pen cannot penetrate. One has to remember, how many times have she now been a finalist in the presidential election? So then we also have another sort of clue or another point of interest, and that is the Polish people. They have now instigated, or they want to claim from Germany all reparations for 1.1 or 1.3 trillion euros. which again will put a huge economic strain on the German economy. Now, I'm sorry, that is like, they had an agreement. It was settled in 57 or something like that, when Poland was Soviet Union. That opportunity has passed, but it is being promoted. And the question has to be asked, why? So, in my opinion, or not in my opinion, according to my conspiracy theory, all the efforts that are being currently implemented is a destruction or tone down of the German economy in order to put it back into place. The Ukrainian-Russian conflict has given a tool to do it more hastily, and basically is a benefit. But unfortunately, there are also a lot of consequences to that. And I'm not totally sure that the people in power have considered all the options and all the possibilities. And as I've stated many times, the world is a complex entity. There's a lot of factors that can influence any event, and it is nearly impossible to provide for all possibility of, I would say, plan A, B, C, D to Z. You cannot have enough plans. You will never have enough plans to cover all the possibilities. So maybe something went skew, especially when they underestimate the Russians, not in terms of the war, but in the Russian determination to pivot to east. Maybe an underestimation of the resilience of the Russian economy, and maybe a misinterpretation of what the rest of the world will do, and whether they will still follow American instructions or whether they will follow their own interests and basically join the pivot of Putin to the east. And I believe they miscalculated that, and that's why I believe they are actually messing around with Taiwan. Sorry, not believe. No, I don't believe this. I'm just presenting a conspiracy theory. So it's not my belief, it's my suggestion in the context of my conspiracy theory, if I had that pronounced it correctly. Well, does it make sense? Well, it's for you to decide. It sounds credible, but it's only one theory. And if you have noticed, I have taken selective points of information and molded into my own narrative and my own fantasy, a fictional story, which might be factional. But as I've always stated, complexity. The world is not simple. That's my story for today. If you like what you listen or what you heard, please subscribe, press the like button. Come on, let's grow the channel. I would like to have some more viewers. Am I talking so much nonsense? Tell your friends, wherever you go, if you leave comments in other sections, leave a link to this channel. I will highly appreciate it. And until next time, cheers.